Hello everyone. Welcome to second session of ManageEngine Applications Manager free training series. And we are happy to have you over this training session. The agenda for today's session is understand application performance with Apdex code, monitor code flow across applications via distributed tracing, pinpoint to the problematic elements in your application code, visualize dependencies in your application architecture with the automated service maps. Before discussing the topics in agenda, let's start off with a short story that why an enterprise product is required from an application performance monitoring. Let's imagine a user is accessing an e-commerce website and purchasing a product from the online store. The error might be encountered while selecting the product or while attempting to place an order, like the portal is taking a long time to load or getting redirected to a different page or showing some error codes like 401, 402, etc. Hence, this can be detected using an enterprise tool before customer reports the problem. Let's discuss a scenario with a different use case. The banking operation has a highly complex infrastructure. The existing plan from the banking sector need to be revised due to the security policy, where the web application need to have a page redirection with a new set of rules. And the app developer has also designed the page based on the requirement. But from the customer environment, this page redirection was not working as expected. As a network engineer or the DevOps team, we do not involve more in detail about the complex codes. But as an application developer, they might have tested the application in your local setup and confirmed that the application is bug-free. But there is a possibility of an error to be encountered from the customer environment. As a network engineer, we make use of this enterprise tool to detect where the error are being encountered with the exact error code to push it to the developer and fix it before the customer encounters the problem, and which makes our web application as bug-free. Why observability is required for an enterprise application? There are three pillars of observability, which are logs, metrics, and traces. And these three data outputs will provide a deeper insight into the health function of the system in cloud and microservice environment. Now, we can look more in detail about these three pillars. First one is logs. Logs are the historical records of the system events and errors. This can be shown as a plain text, binary, or the structured with the metadata. Next is metrics. Metrics are the numerical measurements of the system performance and behaviors such as CPU usage, response time, or the error rates. Next is traces. Traces are the representation of individual requests or transaction that flows through the system, which can help to identify the bottlenecks, dependencies, and root cause of the issue. It is necessary for a developer who are working in the web application to make sure that the website is bug-free and handle the load in the application database to ensure providing a better performance to the users. This could also lead to loss of a potential customer from accessing the application. And for a developer who are working in the web application are unsure the root cause of the issue, also which leads to the impact and loss of the business. So, in this scenario, using an enterprise monitoring tool from the applications manager will keep the management to have a deeper observability and more visibility on the application. So that this causes will increase the demand for using the application. Here are some recent facts gathered by trusted sources like International Data Corporation and Forrester. According to IDC, 90% of the respondents are currently using the observability. This makes the management to have a deeper insight and drill down information of their application. And Forrester research report states that 87% of an engineer said that they are using a cloud native architecture, which has increased the complexity of discovering and troubleshooting the incidents. can now discuss about the 5 flavors of the trends in enterprise tool from the Applications Manager. First one is cloud native application. In the recent times, large enterprises are getting adapted to switch many of their application to the cloud native application has the ability to provide the scalability, flexibility, and efficient software that uses the small independent blocks like microservices, containerization, and Kubernetes. Even developers and operational team are working closely together using the DevOps practices to have a better performance from their application, which gives them a reliable software delivery so that the monitoring these applications is essential for analyzing how each part of application is working and which helps them to fix any issues for handling a multiple users. Next one is artificial intelligence for IT operation capabilities. In the context of application performance monitoring, artificial intelligence and machine learning are recently used to enhance and automate the IT operation through anomaly detection. Also, this helps to identify the unusual deviations, automate IT tasks, predictive analysis for potential resource allocations, and scaling based on real-time performance monitoring. Next one is user-centric monitoring. While interacting with an application, user-centric monitoring shifts the focus from system-centric metrics to actual end-user experience, whereas user experience is gauged by examining the journey from the moment they access the application to the completion of the task. We can identify the user-centric metrics such as page load time, response times, and overall performance of the application, thereby which helps to prioritize the improvement that enhances the user satisfaction. Next, application observability. Application observability includes the application performance monitoring, which helps in gaining the inside details of the performance, behavior, and health of an application. This can be achieved through monitoring the application's transaction metrics like traces, logs, execution time, errors, inefficiencies in code, and identifying the bottlenecks. The last one is full stack performance monitoring. The goal of full stack performance monitoring is to identify and address the performance issues across the entire application stack from the front end user interface to the back end user infrastructure. Also, by monitoring the various layers of stacks, including the application code, server response times, and database queries, can be achieved by collecting the real-time data on various performance like response time and the error rates. By adapting to these latest trends, the organization can gain insight into the performance of their application in real-time manner, which enables them to proactively identify and resolve the potential issues before they impact the end user experience. This is essential for maintaining the reliability, availability, and responsiveness of modern application. Benefits of modern versus traditional approach in building an application. We are aware that there is a dependency on application in our day-to-day life. Increasing the dependency on application and wide usage has made the application to be always available for the user. So, as a group of microservices are built instead of a large monolithic application. The development of technologies like containerization and load balancing has helped the organization to achieve the high availability. With the advent of cloud computing capabilities, the organization is no longer need to spend additional costing to build the large infrastructure and which helps in saving their capital expenditure. Every application are developed on a particular standards depending on the industrial standards like HIPAA for healthcare, FIPS for US governments, whereas the enterprise tool can easily track if an application follows those standards. As discussed in the last session, using the dependency mapping, you can easily identify the faulty components of the application quickly in a single click. And this could identify the application which are under downstate in a real-time manner for an instant diagnosis of a problem. So far, we have discussed why an application performance monitoring is necessary. In Applications Manager, we have a technology called APM Insight under Application Performance Monitoring. The APM Insight will give you an understanding on how your application is behaving from the end user who is accessing it. By a complete end-to-end transaction monitoring across the entire web application will help you to avoid any performance issue. Also, you can analyze the root cause of the problem much faster by performing the first level troubleshooting. Here are the supported technologies in APM Insight are Java, Node.js, .NET Core, Microsoft.NET, PHP, Ruby Rails, and Python. Here are the factors affecting the application performance. When a transaction is made by a user in the web application, the request will be sent from application layer, which travels to the transaction and the network layer and hits the application layer, and this request is served back to the end user. Also, a slow connection to the web application can lead to a network traffic, and the transaction consumes a longer time can lead to the poor response time. An application is developed using a certain technology might have a large number of bugs affecting the function and the performance of the application. The bugs in the code can also cause an exceptions that might result in the transaction execution failures. The stack trace can be used to identify these code issues to improvise and fix the app codes. High usage of a web application and not optimized application at the code level may cause an high consumption of the memory from its allocated space in the machine, which leads to memory leakage and the memory out of memory. For instance, the database calls and queries pertaining to a specific transaction could become a loaded affecting the performance of the application. Hence, for a developer who are working in the application can be dependent on the APM Insight monitoring tool to keep an eye on the factors affecting the performance. The functionality of APM Insight will help you to identify the application errors or latencies which affects the performance of the application. The APM Insight is an agent-based monitoring tool. The first step involves is to deploy the agent on the application server where the application is hosted. These agents are responsible for collecting the performance data and sending it to the applications manager for analysis. The agent residing in the application server uses the bytecode instrumentation method and starts tracking the individual user transaction as they flow through the application stack and send it to the applications manager at the fixed time interval. This allows for detailed monitoring of transaction performance and helps to identify any bottlenecks or performance issue. The tool provides the code level visibility and monitors low database queries and the performance by capturing the real-time user interaction with the application. You can then configure the alerts and notification based on the predefined threshold for the metrics that impacts the performance of the application. When the application performance exceeds this threshold, the tool will send an alert to the IT team, which helps the developer and the IT team to identify the areas that needs to be improved in the performance like application code, database related issues, and page load time, which helps in enabling to proactively address the issues and minimize the downtime. In APM Insight, we have recently introduced a module called Data Exporter. The Data Exporter is commonly designed to facilitate the extraction and export of performance data and monitoring metrics for various performance. The Applications Manager Data Exporter is an independent process that communicates the metrics and traces to the Applications Manager server. A single instance of Applications Manager Data Exporter can handle the data processing for multiple applications and communicate with the Applications Manager server. This way of data flow will reduce the load factor from your application server and also data exporter will perform a quick data transmission to receive a data from the APM Insight agent to the Applications Manager database. This will be performed in 1 minute time interval. Currently, we support the data exporter module for PHP and Python technology. Here are the working behavior of the APM Insight using the data exporter. The agent needs to be installed from the application server, and data exporter can be installed in a different server to reduce the load factor. The APM Insight agent will retrieve the application's data and push it to the data exporter, whereas the data exporter will receive the data from the agent and push it to the applications manager server. Unfolding the advantages of a data exporter. Apdex Go will be more helpful in improving the customer satisfaction. Using the enterprise tool, you can be pre-analysis the data and enhance the security and reduce the network load from the applications. You can alert your development team in prior and make your decisions wisely before the application goes down, which can improvise your application in efficiently communicating and providing a customized data transmission. Here are the key performance indicators of APM Insight. First one is Apdex score. Apdex is a numerical measure of user satisfaction with the performance of the application's response time. Next is response time. Measure the average time it takes the application to respond to the user's request for a transactions across the application. Lower the response time are generally more desirable. Next is requests. Requests are the count, the total number of requests made to the application within a specific time frame and helps to decide the overall workload and usage of the application. Next one is data throughput. Data throughput indicates the amount of data in bytes transferred or processed in and out in the network request by the application during the monitoring period. This helps in understanding the application's data handling capabilities. Last one is exceptions. Exceptions track the number of exceptions, errors, or failures that occur during the cycle of transactions in the chosen duration from processing the request. These exceptions could be various types of errors, such as server errors, timed out, or the other issues that affects the application's normal operations and application's performance with the Apdex score. Have categorized the application responsiveness into three different categories, which are satisfied, tolerance, and frustrated. Satisfied. This category represents the highest level of user experience where the application's response time is between the satisfied threshold and the excellent threshold. Users in this category are generally satisfied with the application's performance. Next is tolerance. The tolerance category indicates that the application's response time is between the tolerating threshold and the satisfied threshold. User in this category might tolerate the performance but may not be entirely satisfied as under the satisfied category. Last one is frustrated. This category represents the lower level of user experience where the application's performance time is below the tolerating threshold. Users in this category are likely to be frustrated with the application performance as it does not meet their expectations. Application Performance Index score is a standardized metric to measure the user satisfaction with the application response time. Here is the methodology we use to show the Apdex score values in the APM Insight. We use the range 0 to 1, with 1 being the best score representing the excellent user satisfaction. Advantages of monitoring the application performance with the Apdex score. User-centric measurement to understand the application behavior, which helps you to understand how your application performance directly impacts the user experience and enables you to prioritize the improvements. Easy interpretation of complex performance data with the common performance metric simplifies the complexity of the data into a single and easily understandable metric by providing a clear and standardized way to assess application performance. You can benchmark and compare the performance levels of different applications, which allows you to identify the high performing application leading to consistent improvement across your IT environment. Proactive issues identification and prioritization of code optimization. So, when the performance falls below the acceptable level, Apdex will help you to identify the critical transaction with the low scores. Highlighting the areas of code optimization, alerts are triggered, enabling a quick issue identification and improving the key transaction metrics that impacts the user transaction. The historical Apdex trends data allows to analyze the performance pattern over the time, helping in understanding the performance trends which identifies the improvement for ensuring the consistent positive user experience. So by now you would understand like and interested on configuring the key business transactions to monitor the entire performance of the application effectively. In this slide, we see on configuring the key transactions of your business operations, there could be a high volume of activities made in the applications. All the transactions will be captured among which you can select the key transactions that you want to monitor in it and set a threshold on the response that reached you will be alerted from the applications manager. Monitor code flow across applications via distributed tracing. In a microservice architecture, it is necessary to monitor a transaction made between two or more applications or services. In this case, with the help of a distributed tracing feature, you can track the transactions made between two or more applications, which is also called as cross-application tracing. Distributed tracing is a method of observing the requests as they propagate through the distributed cloud environments. It follows the interaction and tags it with a unique identifier. The identifier stays with the transaction as it interacts with the microservices, containers, and infrastructures. Let us understand how tracking is done in distributed tracing. When an API request is made by an application to another application, APM Insight adds a HTTP header containing the metadata which is required to track the request. If APM Insight is enabled in another application, it will process the HTTP error and return the tracking information to its caller via response headers. If the other application in turns call another services, the header propagation would continue and traces all the path taken by the original application across the distributed system. Using a data, we can monitor the start time, when the transaction was initiated, response time taken for the transaction to respond within the application, and name of the transaction and the applications. By clicking the expand preview of the application name, you can also view the method calls, code blocks that has taken a significant amount of time to complete the request, and this enables you to monitor the calls between the two applications and narrow down the problem. Autoscaling in APM Insight. In this slide, we can discuss about the autoscaling in APM Insight. Autoscaling is an automated way of managing the resource for your application. Imagine you have a website or an app running on the cloud environment. Whenever the application automatically scales up due to the high user interaction in the site, and to handle this extra traffic, a new instance gets added. However, when these applications are scaled down due to lesser user interactions, these newly added instances become the unused and are still retained. This impacts the license being consumed by the unused instances and resulting to new instances not being added for the monitoring. Hence, with the help of autoscale mode in APM Insight, you can overcome the scenario by automatically unmanaging or detecting the unused instances in the cloud environment. Pinpoint to the problematic elements in your application code. Here, let's see the need to eliminate the issues in the problematic code. As you are aware, stack trace represents the movement of an application during the execution of a program. When a Java application throws an exception, stack trace gets logged with it. By analyzing the stack trace provided by the APM Insight, developer can pinpoint the exact line of the code and sequence of the function calls leading to the issues. This information helps the user to understand the root cause of the problem and can make a code optimization or bug fixes to eliminate the issues and improve the application performance. With stack trace, developer can efficiently troubleshoot and resolve the problems within the application codes, which ensures a smoother and more reliable user experience. You can enable the context-based monitoring for your Java application. This allows the tool to track and trace the individual user transactions, capturing the data on how each registration transactions flows to your application servers. Let's say your application server has three different Java applications running on it. By default, the transactions of all applications coming from the same application server are shown collectively under the Web Transactions tab in the APM Insight. In the image, as you can see, the Tomcat is an application monitor name, and JPET store, sample, and sample web app are the three contexts running on the same application server. The transaction of these three Java apps are listed out in the Web Transaction tab. Now, with the context-based monitoring, you can monitor the performance of all the individual trans applications running in the same app server separately, which helps you to analyze your application performance. This means that by enabling the context-based monitoring, transactions of JPET store, sample web app, and sample can be viewed separately. In this slide, we can see about the visualized dependencies in your application architecture with the automated service maps. Let's take an use case. In IT network and infrastructure, an application may be connected to the multiple databases and have a dependencies with the several servers. So, where the service map provides you the way of analyzing the topological view of the application and along with its instance are represented in the central node. You can easily identify the root cause of the application, database, and the servers. The service map will help your developer or technician to identify where the dependencies has been disconnected. There are three types of views available like map view, table view, and graph view. Now, let us look how all these can be achieved in the APM Insight Monitor from the Applications Manager GUI. And we can discuss on generating how to generate the reports and configure alarm for the performance metrics. Let's take a Java Application Monitor for an example from the APM Insight technology, where we have already added a Java Monitor to the Applications Manager. Here is the Java Monitor. Under the Monitor Information tab, we show the application configuration details like how many instances are added, Java application name, agent type, and host details, where under this tab, you can able to find all the application related configurations. Next, we can move on to the Overview tab. Under Overview tab, we display the performance metrics like Apdex score, response time, requests, data throughput, and exceptions of overall application. Also, to show you the drill down informations under the Overview tab, we just display the response time broken by the components as a differentiated between the web and the background transactions. And if you need to customize this graphical view, you can click uncheck this checkbox of the metrics which are shown over here so that you can able to compare the metrics like app code with the PG-SQL database or else PG-SQL database with the overall response time. Under the transaction list tab, we will list out the parameters which is impacting the application. From the troubleshooting aspect, we also display the filter transactions like top 5 transactions which has a high response time and top 5 slow traces affecting your application performance so that your application team can easily identify the root cause and fix the issues before customer reports the problem. Next, we can move on to the transactions tab. Under the transactions tab, we will list all the transactions which has been performed from the application layer with the deeper insight metrics like Apdex score, response time, request, data throughput. Also, we have differentiated these transactions into three different flavors like web transaction, background transaction, and the errors which are happening at the application level. First, we can look into the web transactions. The web requests from the application which are being performed from the browser will be considered as a web transaction. And under the background transactions, if your applications is designed with the navigations to the different internal application or the transaction which are called by the scheduler will be considered as an background transactions. The error transactions, we capture the transactions which has an error code between the 400 to 599 and those error transactions will be captured under the error tab. Before moving into the key transactions, if you feel like any specific transaction will be impacting your application so that you can enable these keys which are available under the key categories so that those transactions will be listed under the key transactions. Next, we can move on to the database tab. Under the database tab, every transactions from the application will have a database operation to fetch the details, whereas we capture the queries like select, update, insert, and delete queries which is used for the transactions. The database operations will be represented in two different views. One is table view and another one is graphical view. If you need to have a more drill down details of each query which is impacting the application or which is happening or performed at the transaction level, you can select on the query on the particular query so that this will show you the drill down information under the graphical view where you can able to fetch all the server details like average response time and the total number of requests and the data operations by the callers and the data operation by the response time, data operation by the throughputs. Next, we can move on to the traces tab. Under the traces tab, multiple transactions performed in the application will be captured under the traces tab, where we show the cumulative of the transaction with the error codes with the drill down information. And also to have a more deeper insight of these transactions and the traces, you can click on this transaction so that it will navigate you to the graphical view where you can able to get when was this request has been performed, how many method calls has been initiated from the DB queries and the external calls, server metrics like CPU, response time, memory consumed for the individual transactions. Also, we have an option to differentiate the suspected slow metrics. If you enable this option, the suspected slow metric calls will be highlighted to differentiate and make your troubleshooting more easier. Next, we can move on to the JVM tab. Under JVM tab, we monitor the application code that is running on your JVM, where we monitor the key metrics which is impacting the performance of the application. Also, we capture the exception count or the error count. From the troubleshooting aspect, if you click on any individual transactions which has happened and impacting the application and which you feel like there is a peak point happened in this graph, like non-heap memory is being used in this metrics, if you click on this peak point, it will take you to the specific custom range and you can easily identify when this JVM has been impacted your application. Next, we can move on to the exceptions tab. Under exceptions tab, we monitor the top exceptions, error codes, recent 5 exceptions, and the error traces which is impacting the performance of the application. Also, we capture the exception counts and the error counts. From the troubleshooting aspect, if you click on any individual transactions which has been shown over here, so that it will show you the drill down information in the graphical view, like the more drill down details like the exception counts, recent 5 traces of these exceptions, etc. Next, we can move on to the service map. Under service map, we capture the network connectivity of the infrastructure like applications, databases, and the servers. If there is a network issue or network disconnectivity between the applications and the databases or between the databases or the servers, the severity icon will be turned to red as mentioned over here. Next, we can move on to the app parameters tab. Under app parameters, we monitor the primary parameters that holds the application. Their parameters will have the sum, average, and the count in the graphical view. The last tab is thread profiling. The thread profiling helps you to identify and isolate the bottlenecks in your code stack. In Applications Manager APM Insight, all thread profiling collected in a chosen time window along with the thread count, CPU time, and the memory details. There are two types of profiling. One is schedule profiling and another one is on-demand profiling. Schedule profiling will schedule the thread profiling twice a day for a period of 5 minutes time interval. With the on-demand profiling, we can initiate the thread profiling at the current time for a time duration from 5 to 30 minutes. Next, let's discuss how we can analyze the applications from the troubleshooting aspect. Let me navigate you to the overview tab and your application team or customer reports or before customer is reporting a problem, you can identify or find the root cause of any traces or the impacted transactions which has happened at the particular time frame. And for example, let me take an HTTP error code here. And if I see over here, there is a peak point happened at the particular time frame. So if I need to know more drill down information about this, let me click on this high peak point from the graph so that it will navigate you to the transactions tab so that you can able to find at the specific time frame what are all the transactions which is impacted the performance of the application. Like we can see the manager JMX proxy has impacted and which has a 100% of an error rate. And this is how you can also troubleshoot your application using the APM Insight technology. Also, an application can have a multiple instances into it. If you click on this drop down, we just list out all the instances which are available under the application. And as an reporting aspect, if you need to take any reports of a particular attribute, you can click on this application instances. And if you click on the metric details, it will navigate you to the particular time frame with a detailed drilled down metrics of an attribute. Also, this report can be downloaded in the PDF and the CSV format. Under the Monitor Action tab, we list out the modifications that can be made for the monitors. And under the custom range, you can change the time interval based on your requirement. Also, we have provided an additional feature like the screenshot option. If you need to take a screenshot of an APM Insight monitor, we have provided a two different types like full page image and the visible part. And if you take a full page image screenshot, where you can able to edit the screenshots from the APM GUI and you can able to download it in the PDF format, and also you can send the screenshot directly to your IT team or the application team. Next, we can move on to the reports. To generate a report for the management perception, just click on the reports tab, and under the application server, you can select the category or the application type as APM Insight, where we will be listing out the different flavors of an APM Insight reports, where the at a glance report will get you the overall metrics of the particular monitor of all the monitors which are available under the applications manager from the APM Insight. Also, you can select the time frame based on your requirement. And if you need to know more drill down details of any of the specific monitor level, you can click on the particular graph so that it will navigate you to the particular monitor reports where all the metrics will be available. And if you need to compare any individual monitor attributes or the different monitors with the same attribute, you can select the attribute based on your requirement, and it will navigate you to a different page with the reports tab where we will list and monitors which are available under this monitor category with the metrics values. And if you need to have a comparison between the reports, then you can select the monitors, and if you click on this compare option, it will generate a comparison report of the attributes at the monitor level. And this report also can be generated in the PDF and the CSV format. We can move on to the alerting option, which is available under the APM Insight monitor. Click on the settings tab and configure alarms under the alarms or actions, where we have different categories for configuring an alarm. One is monitor, where you can configure an alarm for the individual monitor level with the monitor name. And next is monitor group, where you can configure the alerts at the group template. And from the monitor type, you can configure the alerts for all the monitors which are available under the particular monitor categories. And once you select the monitor type as APM Insight, we will list out all the attributes which are available for the APM Insight monitor. Let me take a response time as an example. And if you click on Associate under the threshold, it will navigate you to the configurations page, where under the threshold profile, you can select the threshold which has been already created so that the values will be displayed. And the overriding existing threshold configuration in the APM APM Insight option will remove the existing threshold from the monitor level and replace the new threshold to the particular monitors. Once you enable the configure actions at the attribute level, you can able to find the available action which has been already created, so that once you move this action to the associated action, so that once the threshold is been breached or exceeded, your internal team will receive an email from the applications manager. This, this brings up to the end of the training session. So let's have a quick recap of what was being discussed. Tracking application performance using the Apdex core, finding problems in the application code, tracking transactions from the one application to another and debugging the issues, identifying problems in the code stack, and how service map makes it easier to identify the problem. Thank you for showing your interest in today's webinar. Have a nice day.